Hey everybody, it's a beautiful day outside. Kind of threw my back out doing yoga, but figured I'd do another short video. Um, I think in this one I'm mostly going to be talking about self-love and just kind of what it means to me, how it's changed my perspective on stuff, um, and what it means to truly care for yourself. Um, just to put this into perspective, I was in a very long relationship uh, where I didn't really take care of myself. I put the other person first almost 100% of the time, and when the relationship ended, I really was confronted with like the full depths of how much I wasn't taking care of myself, and kind of honoring my resources, my body, my energy. Um, and I think a lot of guys, maybe girls too, have this experience where um, you your energy, your well-being maybe wasn't prioritized in your early life, um, and you get into your first relationship and you continue that pattern of not honoring your needs, your energy, your patience, your effort, and you kind of grind yourself down to a pulp. And the really painful thing about it is that when uh, the relationship ends, you're left with almost nothing, uh, in the sense that you're completely exhausted. You know, you have no um, self-esteem, no resources. You don't feel good about anything. Um, and you feel like the purpose of your life is just kind of gone, or at least I did. I even though I had a job and things, I didn't really feel like there was much going on in my life outside of my relationship. And a lot of the failings, I think, of that relationship, just in terms of my ability to bounce back from it, stem from a lack of self-care and self-love, and I can break it down to the ways that I think uh, everyone should care for themselves, and the ways that I had really failed to do that in my last relationship. Um, and I think the biggest thing for me was I didn't really acknowledge um, the struggles I was having with my mental health. I was really pushing it to the back. Um, there were two incidences where I was having trouble with my mental health, and rather than kind of slow my life down, um, I just kind of let everything keep going. Um, and I really regret that. I think that's something that had I responded to what my body was telling me sooner, I could have really taken care of myself and made sure that I was okay. Um, and then other things that I don't think I really honored myself in are my ex made a lot more than I did. You know, she still does, but she would pay for half of my car, and I kind of felt obligated to drive her around everywhere. And it was really our car, and I was just the chauffeur. Um, but I think I had it really embedded in my head that her time was more valuable than my time, because I wasn't making as much money. And you know, in a monetary sense, it's true. I'm not gonna deny that, but in the sense of when you're in a relationship, um, both people's time is supposed to be valuable, you know, and if you're too tired to drive, or um, if you know you need a little bit more of the person's time, you're feeling neglected. These are things that you need to voice, and not voicing them is kind of what turns a functional relationship into suffering, and kind of leads it towards that path of no return. Um, I very rarely voiced when I was feeling tired. I remember one time I told my ex that I didn't want to drive her home, and I told her that I was just too tired. We'd gone to a party, and I really didn't enjoy the party. I didn't enjoy the food. I was just not feeling it at all. And she got in the car with one of our friends. She drove the friend home, and then she crashed the car. And, like, we can debate whether or not it was intentional that she crashed the car, but the implied message was like, it's your job to drive. You're the one who has to do that. Um, and After that day, I don't think I ever asked her to drive me again. It just never happened. I was always the one who drove. Um, and there were a couple of times where I'd pick her up from work, and uh, she would complain that I was late to pick her up, which was weird because a lot of the times I just sit in the parking lot and wait for her to finish working. Sometimes I'd wait an hour, 2 hours, and I'd never say anything. But I remember this one particular day I went to go pick her up, and she got in the car and she just immediately started complaining about how I was late. Um, and I think at the heart of a lot of the dynamics of that relationship was me not valuing my own time, my own effort, how much work I was putting into the relationship, and how little I felt I was getting out of it. Um, you know, it's never okay to feel like you're alone in a relationship. No relationship should feel like that. Um, and Yeah, I think I could have done much better just at taking care of myself. And I think on a whole, my resources were very skewed um, towards focusing on my ex and how I could improve her life, and um, be like a positive force in her life, and that I had almost completely abandoned myself. Um, and I wasn't focusing on what I wanted out of life or what I wanted out of my career. It was like one of those situations where um, instead of someone being a part of my life, they were the focus of my life. And I think that a lot of those relationships are sort of doomed to fail. Um, and Other ways you can care for yourself, just structuring your life in a way where you feel like your baseline needs are being met. You're with people who are paying attention to you when they're with you. Um, you're taking care of your body. You're eating decently. You're sleeping well. Um, these are all things that I was just kind of tossing out the window pretty frequently. Um, and Yeah, I mean, going through a really intense breakup can be the type of experience where you really lose sight of like who you are and what you want out of life and your own value. And especially if you're the person who gets left, it's even harder. It's even more painful. Um, but I think the way you put yourself back in the light and kind of reclaim your life from an experience like that is by acknowledging, um, that you have value, you have self-worth, you know, um, and that your care has value, and reinvesting in yourself, taking that focus that you had for someone else and kind of aiming it directly at yourself and saying like, no, I'm going to carry myself through this, I'm going to come out the other side of this experience like a stronger and more whole person. um, and if you're anything like me and you've experienced like really painful losses in your life, breakups can be really hard. They can be the type of experience where you completely shatter, and I think I came pretty close, in all honesty. But in the soup of my misery and pain, um, when I really looked inward, what I saw was someone who was struggling to care for themselves. It was a very honest introspection that I think I had been avoiding for a very long time. And you can always work harder on yourself and your diet and your body and exercise, and you can improve your skin regimen and brush your teeth more frequently. These are all things you can do. And if you got left by someone, and one of the main reasons was your appearance, um, it can be a great thing to do for your self-esteem to just work out every day, eat slightly better, consume less sweets. But I think beneath the exterior of just increasing uh, your physical self, I think that there's an emotional side of being caught in one of those relationships that you have to address. Even before you start putting yourself back on the market, because I did, and that was a huge mistake. Um, and I think the emotional component is really addressing that the person you became in that relationship was someone who was showing up in someone else's life and not showing up in your own life. Really, is someone who wasn't putting their needs first and wasn't voicing their needs in the relationship and just kind of settled for whatever the other person was going to give them and endlessly gave with no expectation for things back. I do think, in some sense, people who are taught from a young age, and this is myself, I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I think people who are taught from a young age to just give and give and give and never to ask for anything back, I think that that's toxic in a way, especially if you can't come from, you know, a household where there was no real model for how to function in a relationship. I think that you can be a toxic giver. You can be someone who gives things, and can't or refuses to give that same love and attention to themselves. Um, and I think relationships are a testament to that. I mean, you can't just be a well for someone and never ask for them to put anything back in. You don't deserve that kind of suffering. Um, and I think a lot of the work of emerging from, you know, an experience like that where you broke up with someone or someone broke up with you is, you know, making the promise to yourself that if you ever find yourself in that position again of just like endlessly giving your soul to someone, and it not being reciprocated, that you acknowledge that you're worth more, and that you have needs, and that those needs are as much a concern as the other person's needs. That no one person in a relationship is more valuable than the other person. Um, and that withstanding, everything else is still a form of self-love. Exercise, when done correctly, I think is a form of self-love. I think there's ways you can exercise that are more or less, not healthy in my opinion. Like if you're just exercising to like punish your body for your being alone, like you're literally wearing yourself out every day. Um, I don't think that's particularly good. I think exercise needs to be done with the mentality of I am working my body. I'm, making sure that I'm not just sitting in my post-relationship depression and sinking. And exercise can be really good for that. But I think most change begins with the internal and acknowledging like where you actually are at. And for myself, I really was missing that component of just, um, how do you feel? Um, are your emotional needs being met? And I think by the time I started asking myself these questions, I had to acknowledge that these are questions I'd never asked in the 7 years I was dating this person, and they were important questions. They were things that I think needed to be brought up, um, at a much earlier time. Even if the relationship was doomed, um, I still should have voiced myself better, and been more honest about how I felt. Because I think that a lot of the floundering in my college days and my ultimately my career were a result of me not being able to voice my emotional needs, or really not being able to provide for myself in certain ways. So it's almost like a two-way street. I could have voiced my needs better, but at the same time, I wasn't providing things for myself that I needed to. I wasn't sleeping as well as I should have. I wasn't interacting with people. I wasn't getting sunlight. I wasn't eating well. Um, so it really comes back full circle, almost. And yeah, that's really how I feel about that. You know, it's uh, it's a hard thing to come to terms with. That you weren't uh, really there for yourself in the way that you should have been. But I think it shows growth. And ultimately, that's the goal. Um, it's not to be with someone, it's not to be happy. All of those things are fantastic when they happen. But the real goal in life is to grow. Grow from your experiences. Don't stagnate. Don't stay in the same place. You know, doing the same things and expecting different results. When you get older, you have to acknowledge um, your fault in things, and I fully acknowledge just that I could have taken better care of myself in the past, um, and I try to nowadays, and I definitely do better than I used to, um, and yeah, those are my thoughts, more or less. I hope this was helpful to some of you. I know someone's watching. I don't know who, but someone. So if you are that person, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.